Okay, so here we are. We're going to be talking about viewports in this video. Viewports are the principal tool we use to take our drawing, which is drawn at full scale, and to scale it down at just the right magnification or factor so it fits onto a piece of paper at the appropriate scale. So we take a full scale drawing, a full size drawing, and we shrink it down by just the right factor so that when you print out a piece of paper, the drawing is at to a specific scale on that drawing. Okay, so the last thing we did in the last video was to do a page setup for this 11 by 17 sheet. And so now the printing defaults are set. If I click on print now, the same window will come up. There it is. Same dialog box, except it says plot up here, not page setup, and all of our settings are here. We go to preview and we'll get what our 11 by 17 sheet of paper will look like when we print out that 11 by 17 piece of paper. Obviously it's not ready yet, right? It's got this window here off-centered. It's not at any particular scale, and there's all of this information on there that we don't need, right? Well, we don't need together. The furniture, the power plan, the partition tags, all that stuff, we don't need at this point all together on one sheet. So we're going to learn in this video how to separate all that and how to get our sheet looking correct. But one thing I want to talk about before that, I just X'd out of that preview, was that we are printing to PDF, which is the logical thing to do, especially for a course that's taught online, because you're not going to be printing out a piece of paper. We don't have, I assume, you don't have a large-scale plotter at home, or anything even like a 11 by 17 printer, right? Most people just have a letter size printer, which you can also print. Like, you know, if you chose instead of Adobe PDF as your plotter, you could choose any plotter here, and this is what I want to make clear. Let's see, this is the printer in our office. Sorry, this one. And this is one of the printers, so we can choose that one, and your choice of paper will be limited based on the capacity of that printer. Happens to be an 11 by 17 printer, so that is an option. If you chose the printer that you have loaded on your machine and it doesn't have 11 by 17, then that's not likely to be an option for you, right? But these other letter will be legal more than likely, and some of these envelopes and smaller size pieces of paper. So and you see what I did there. I started with the default, but I can change it. If the default is Adobe PDF, that's what I normally would print to. But if I wanted a hard copy, I just choose a physical printer or a plotter. All right, but I often just print to PDF. Those copies you can save, of course, in your computer. But then the great thing about this whole thing is that you can send these PDFs to a print shop, and they will print it out for you. For many years, working with AutoCAD, I would have to print out the I'd print out the files onto full-size sheets, and that would take hours. You'd be done with your work at 9 o'clock at night maybe, but then you'd be there until 3 o'clock in the morning just printing out files. You combine them in order, and you wrap them up, you write out an order to the print shop, and then somebody who gets in early calls up the print shop to have them pick up the originals to make copies. That is no longer the case. You just email the PDFs, and it works out great. So that's just something I wanted to cover here. I'm going to now go on to our main topic, which is the viewports. So as I mentioned before, first time you click on the Layout tab, it's going to create a viewport for you right here. And it will put it on whatever layer is current. That's not the layer we want it on. We'd rather have it on def points. So I'm going to do that first. I can highlight that viewport, which is an object, right? It just is an object. The stuff inside it is not part of the viewport. It's just what the viewport allows you to see. The viewport, again, is a window from Paperspace into model space. Okay, and in this window, you're allowed to scale that view to a specific standard scale or just randomly. So the viewport itself is an object, which is a rectangle. There are options to draw viewports at different shapes, but for now we're just going to use rectangles. And so it's an object like any other. It can be on a layer. So right now it's on the column tag layer. I'm going to highlight it and move it to the def points layer. So one thing about the def points layer, I'm going to hit escape to remove the grips and the highlight. The def points layer is black here. Now let's go to our layer property manager. See def points right here? Def points, if you type in that layer called def points and you spell it exactly the way that it's spelled here with no spaces, caps or no caps, doesn't matter. But if you spell it just that way, it has a particular feature, and that's this right there. It doesn't print. Okay, we know that about def points, but it's especially handy in this case because when we deal with viewports, we usually don't want them to print. Okay, now that doesn't mean that the things inside of the viewport won't print. It's only the frame, it's only that window that won't print. So we put it on def points. And another thing to keep in mind here, just if I hadn't pointed it out before, AutoCAD has some strange logic sometimes. And in AutoCAD, white is black and black is white and white is white and black is black, depending on what your background is. Okay, so in this case, the background of this drawing is white, right? It's a sheet of paper. So even though the color of def points is assigned the color white, it will show up as black in this case, or otherwise you wouldn't see it. So it automatically switches for you. Now if you were in model space where the background is black and you have def points as the current layer, well then it comes out as white. Okay, just wanted to make that clear. Okay, back to model space, layout tab number 1. So all I've done here is change the viewport to def points layer. So now you can see it better. Now we're going to go through this handout that I have for you, the using viewports in AutoCAD. Spend some time putting this together so it's nice and clear. So I'm just going to read for you the definition here for the viewports. Viewports, also known as layout viewports, are rectangles drawn in Paperspace which give you views of model space. They're used to bring your drawings, which are drawn at full scale, onto a much smaller piece of paper. In other words, you scale down the drawing in these viewports so that you can fit the drawing onto sheets of paper. All right. You can move, resize, rescale layout viewports. You can also control what is seen through these viewports by using current viewport freeze. Most of the functions having to do with viewports are described in more detail below. So this is a very important and concise document. I want you to read it thoroughly, make sure you understand all aspects of it, because we are going to, from this point forward, use viewports all the time. Okay, creating a viewport is the first part. When you create a viewport, well, there's one there for you already, right? When you click on layout, but it's not set to any particular scale. It's sort of at a random size, and whatever's shown in it, it just zooms in so that all the contents of your model space are visible, right, to whatever scale factor that might happen to be. It's not at a particular scale. So we can manipulate this, right? And I'll show you what to do, how to do that in a second. Or we could create a new viewport too. Sometimes you just want to create a new viewport. You can create a new viewport just by using the copy command. You can copy one, and there we go. We've got two viewports. Now, just to be clear, I did not copy that plan. If I go to model space, it's still just one plan in here. It just happens to be two views of the same plan. So if I were to temporarily move this thing right over here, I don't know, right there. If I go to model space or paper space, you see the same thing in both. Okay, I'm going to quickly undo that. Okay. Now, that's one way to create a viewport. You can also create a new viewport just using a command called viewport. Now, it used to be that under the view toolbar, there was an option to make a new viewport, but for some reason it's not there right now, and I can't figure out why. So for the few times that you would actually need to create this viewport, a new viewport, you can just type in the word viewport, right, rather than spend any more time than necessary looking for that command. So you just type in viewport, one word, and this window comes up. There are different ways to create a viewport. Most of these just they're not. It's not necessary to rely on these standards. I mean, I can't tell you once that I ever used this. I just create my own viewport and copy and manipulate them afterwards. It really is very little help to do this, but who knows. Anyway, I just use single viewport, and the settings as they are in the default mode are the ones you want to use. A 2D wireframe, the view is current, setup is 2D. None of these things are that important to go into detail with. Just single, okay. So now it's asking us to create a viewport, so I'll create a smaller viewport up here. And just like all the rest, it shows what's in model space completely. It zooms in to show as much as what's in model space. And I'll prove that to you. If I go here, and let's say I draw a line out here. All right. Let's just keep it there. I go to layout, and now I create a new viewport. 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 And I hit OK. And I create a new viewport here. See, it created a viewport that's, these don't get affected, right? Because these are already drawn. But the new one shows everything that's in model space as it zooms in as close as it can to show everything that's in model space. So obviously it's not set to any specific scale. These are all at different sizes. But now, you know, you see I have 4 different views there. I'm going to erase all of these except one. And I'm going to oh, I noticed that in my handout I do mention the viewport toolbar, but like I just said, it's grayed out for some reason. I can't figure that out. So just type in viewport for now. And I rarely even use that. I just manipulate the viewport that's already on the screen. Okay. All right, on the handout, the next thing after creating a viewport is scaling in a viewport, and then after that is resizing a viewport. And I don't know why I did it that way, though I've been working with this handout for quite a long time. But I think resizing a handout would be the more appropriate thing to cover now. To resize a viewport, it's very simple. All you got to do is click on the viewport, and you get these grips. All right. You can click on a grip, and you see it maintains the rectangular shape, and I can just make it bigger. All right. If I do this, I lose the plan, right? But there we go. I can resize it that way. Now I'm going to hit escape to get rid of the grips. You could also use the stretch command, right? I just use the stretch command. Right? It's just like any other rectangle, except it stays a rectangle even when you just stretch one corner or you use the grip on one corner. So you just treat it like any other object. I believe you can also scale it. This is kind of confusing, but you can use the scale command, and this only scales up the viewport. It doesn't affect the image or the view inside of it. All right. I can move it. I can even move it off of the sheet of paper, right? It's not very helpful, right? Because if I print this now, I go to print and go to preview, it'll be a blank sheet of paper because everything is outside, not only outside of the dashed line, which is the printable area on the sheet of paper, but just way off the sheet. So my point here is that you can manipulate this viewport like any other object. Okay. So that's simply how you resize a viewport. Now scaling in a viewport. This is the most important function. I can't think of another one, but another one that matches it in terms of the importance of the viewport, right? You scale within a viewport. I'm going to go back to the Home tab here. But to scale within a viewport, you click on the viewport. Now, this is where terminology starts becoming important. We're going to manipulate these viewports in lots of ways. Okay, we're going to click once on the viewport. We're going to double click inside the viewport. We're going to double click on the viewport. So all of these things have their own names, and I want to be very clear with it. To start with, this first one is just highlighting the viewport. To highlight the viewport is just a single click on the viewport. Okay, highlighting the viewport. So that's the term that we're going to use. When you highlight the viewport, you're still in paper space, right? Our cursor is in paper space, and the viewport is highlighted with the grips. When that is highlighted, a new window shows up down here. Okay, this is the viewport scale. Okay, so scale, as it says, scale of selected viewport. If you click on this number, right now it's a random decimal, but if you click on this, you get this, I don't know what the opposite of a drop-down menu is, a pull-up menu, I don't know. So these are standard scales. These we don't use all that much in our profession, 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 4. But down here we see our standard architectural scales. All right, some of these aren't that familiar or commonly used, but there's 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch equals a foot, 1/2 inch equals a foot, 1.5 inches equals a foot, and so on. So this particular drawing is going to be at 1/8 inch equals a foot, so I'm going to select that, and there we go, we zoomed in. Okay, obviously it looks appropriate. It looks like it's the right size, but it's not on the sheet. So the plan is not on the sheet because all it's doing is zooming right into the drawing, but it's not necessarily in the right position. So all right, so the viewport is highlighted. Now there's one way I'm going to show you a couple of ways to get that plan centered in the drawing. All right, so one way would be to simply click on the grip here and make this viewport bigger, and then adjust the size of the viewport so it shows what you want to be in that window. There we go. Now you can see why we did the column tags, right? So now you have the window framed out just to show your plan, and now to move it into the middle of the sheet, all you have to do is use the move command. Now it's already highlighted. I can choose move and just move it like that. Or if it's not highlighted, start the move command, select the object you want to move, which is the viewport, pick a base point and move it here. Alright, so now if I click on that viewport and look down here in the lower right hand corner, it says that drawing is shown at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. If I go to print and go to preview, this is starting to look a lot better, right? Notice that there's no frame because the viewport itself is on depth points. That's the way we want it. And if we were to print this out right now, that drawing would be at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. Okay. Now, with one qualification. When you print out a PDF, obviously you could print out a PDF, you could print out this PDF on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and obviously it wouldn't be to scale because it would likely shrink the drawing down to fit onto that sheet of paper. You have to print to the right size paper, 11 by 17 in this case, but also you want to make sure that you print using none for scale, because if you print to a PDF, if you print a PDF onto a piece of paper, one of the options is to shrink to fit onto a piece of paper. You don't want to use that because it'll adjust the size of your image. You say none, and then when you print onto a piece of paper, it doesn't change the size of the image, so it will automatically be at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. Okay, so that's great. Now, one other thing I see in this preview is that the lines, which should be center lines, are not shown as center lines. I will show you how to fix that a little bit later. I want to talk about viewports still. So I'm going to hit escape to get out of this preview. And here we are. So it looks pretty good. Now I was going to talk about another way to do this. I'm going to undo. Go back to this. I'm going to go back. Click on this. Change the scale to 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. There we go. Now, another way to manipulate the image or to move the image is to activate the viewport. So again, I'm going to beat this like a dead horse. I'm going to click on this. That's highlighting. All right. Hit escape. To activate a viewport, you double click inside the viewport, somewhere inside the viewport, not on the line. That's something else that we'll see. If you do that, you'll be in this other environment that we want to talk about later. Don't double click on the viewport yet. Double click inside the viewport. When we do that, let's look at what happens. Double click inside the viewport. So a couple things happened. One was that the viewport got bold. The other thing is that my cursor changes to the crosshairs inside, but when I leave that window, it's an arrow. So basically, the way to think about an activated viewport is that you've opened up that window. You're reaching in through the viewport, and now you're in model space. In fact, down here, this used to say paper. Now when I double click inside that viewport, it changes to model, because I am in model space. If I want to get out of this activated viewport, I put the cursor outside and double click outside. So let's look at a couple other clues so you know what environment you're in. This triangle is the symbol for paper space. All right. When I double click inside here, that goes away, and you are in model space, and you get this symbol, this X and Y, showing where 0, 0 is. That's the symbol for model space. So I double click inside here, and this changes from paper to model. All right. But to get out of there, I double click outside. To activate the viewport, I double click inside. Now, when I'm inside this viewport, I can pan. So I can use the pan command, P enter, or just press down on your scroll wheel. But I usually use P enter, and then I can pan over like this. If you use the scroll wheel, you can press down. I'm going to do that now. You can't see it, but I'm going to press down on the scroll wheel, and it works just like the pan command. But my worry always is that, especially when I'm going fast, that I'm going to turn that scroll wheel and change the scale of the drawing. So I usually just type in P enter and scan until I get the drawing that I want in there, and when I'm done, I have to cancel out of the command, escape, and then double click outside of the viewport. Alright, so at least for now, we do other things with an activated viewport. In fact, in this class we'll talk about it. But for now, you want to go in, you want to jump into the viewport, activate it, and jump out as soon as possible. Because what you can do, if you accidentally stay in the viewport too long and just move the scroll wheel, you zoom out, for example, now it's no longer to scale, right? No longer to scale. So I'm going to click on here, change it back to 1/8 inch scale, use the pan command to recenter it, and jump out. Now, one thing that you can do, and which I recommend, is you click on the viewport and you lock it. See this button right here? The selected viewport is not locked. So I'm going to click on it. Now it's locked. If I double click inside there, see what happens? I'm not zooming in and out of the image. I'm just, it's locked. I can't manipulate the image in there. So that's good. I like that. But I still can use the grips on the outside. Even when the viewport is locked, I can use the grips to change the size of the viewport. Okay, so now we know how to move an image within an activated viewport. We can resize a viewport. Obviously, moving a viewport, you just use it like any other object, right? You can just move it using the move command. All right. Now it's time to move on to the last big topic here, and that is using an activated viewport and current viewport freeze to set up different drawings within multiple viewports. Okay. The big picture of this is that ultimately we're going to have a series of tabs down here, okay? And those tabs will give us different views of our drawing. All right, before I go into that, let me show you a sample. I think I still have this open, yes. All right, here's a project of mine here. Model space looks like this. All right, we've got a bunch of floor plans in here. This is the cellar plan. This is the first floor plan, and you notice there's a lot of layers on it. This is not just a complicated looking drawing, and we just got to kind of ignore some of this stuff. No, it's layers upon layers of different information. In fact, look right here. You have dimensions at different scales. Well, that's because these dimensions are for an 1/8 inch scale drawing, and these are for probably a 1/4 inch or could be 1/2 inch scale drawing, detail drawing, right, where the plan is bigger so the dimensions can be smaller. Now you have all these layers in model space here, and then what you have down below are all of these tabs that give you different views of the drawing. Okay, so let's look at the paper space tab for the cellar. There's the cellar floor plan, and then we go here to the first floor plan. That's the first floor plan. So we have all of the layers that we want to see here. Now, and then there's the typical plan, and so on, bulkhead plan, along with the bulkhead elevations. These are those little structures on top, on the roof. Now, let's, what's the MTA floor, first floor? Oh, MTA first floor has to do, because it's next to some train tracks, we had to have a special drawing for that. Anyway, down here, first floor areas. If I click on that, it's a much more simplified drawing. I had to do this, I can't remember why, for the building department. I think I had to show them certain areas and how much, how big they were. In AutoCAD, this is very important. In AutoCAD, you don't just create a copy of a drawing. If you wanted to, say, make this simplified drawing, you don't make a copy of your floor plan and then erase the information that you don't want. Because once those two drawings diverge, every time you make a change in one drawing, you'd have to run and go to all the other versions of the first floor plan and make those same changes. No, you don't do that. Instead, you keep all the drawings together, all the information together, all layer upon layer, and you use this method that we're learning here to separate them out into the drawings that you want, to make the nice clear drawings, but because they're all superimposed, they stay coordinated. The hardest thing to do when you're putting together construction documents is to keep your drawings coordinated so that the information is consistent from one drawing to the next. And this truly is one of the greatest things about AutoCAD or any drafting program, is that it helps you keep things organized and coordinated. All right? And that's how we do it. This is how we separate them all out. So here's another, cellar areas. Compare this drawing with this drawing. It's the same drawing, except some layers are filtered out. In this one, a lot of the layers are on. In this one, a lot of the layers are filtered out. They're still on, but they're not in this view. So using current viewport freeze is how we do this. So let's go back to our drawing. Which one is it here? Okay. So right now we have all of the layers on. You see the power plan, the furniture, you see the architectural symbols, and so on. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a series of tabs down here. Ultimately, we're going to have a bunch of tabs. The first tab is here. This is the one I've been manipulating. You'll notice that when I hold my cursor over it, you get a thumbnail view. It's giving you an old view of what was there before. But anyway, I'm going to right-click and rename it. I'm going to call this one, in all caps, ARC, for the architectural plan. All right. Now, before you go on and you make this one into the furniture plan, you can forget about it, because this one still has no particular good scale. It's the viewport's on the wrong layer. I'm just going to right-click on this and delete it. Okay. Because what I'll do is after I'm done creating the architectural layout, then I'll just make copies. All right. So now I'm going to make copies before I draw the title block, which I really should wait until I do the title block and all that's done. So when I make copies, I don't have to do everything. I don't have to mess around with creating a title block for each of my layouts. All I have to do is copy this viewport with with everything done already. But we can't wait to do that, because I want to show you how to manipulate viewports. So we just make some extra work for ourselves. But right now we have the architectural plan. Obviously, we see the furniture plan. We don't want that. We don't want the furniture information. We don't want the power information in this. So the easiest way to do this, as the handout says, is to activate the viewport. So I'm going to double click inside that viewport. I'm lucky that I'm glad that I have the viewport locked, so in case I accidentally zoom in and out, I'm not changing the scale of that drawing. Then I will, I want to get rid of some of the layers, so I will use the freeze button here, that freeze button right there under layers. I use the freeze button, and now what I'm doing here is I'm freezing the layer in the current viewport. So it's current because it's activated, right? If I click on there, then the furniture goes away. If I click on the number there, which is on the text furniture layer, that goes away. If I click on the power plan, that goes away. So there's my architectural plan. All right, there we go. That's it. Now, it's not really done yet, because let's go to the layer property box. I'm going to pin it open so you can see. There's a layer, there's a column here called viewport freeze. You'll notice that the viewport is still activated. It's still the current viewport, right? So when I look down here, I see most of these are suns, except these two, and then another one down here. Let's look at what that one is. That's the furniture layer. That's frozen in that viewport. Right here, this one is the power plan. That's frozen in the viewport. This layer right here is text furniture. That's frozen. But you'll see the next one is text power. That's not frozen yet. Well, that's because there was nothing in the drawing yet. Oh, that's not exactly true. If I zoom in here, there, that is text power. So I can click on that and freeze that layer. Oops. And now text power is frozen in that current viewport. But you'll see things like this: RCP, RCP grid. The reflected ceiling plan layers are still on here. So, and of course, I can't click on them to freeze them because there's nothing drawn on those layers yet. So you could wait until there's something there and then freeze those layers. Or I'd recommend instead to bring out your layer manager, and then what you see here, this is where this part of the layer standards, I should call it, not layer manager. This is where this part of the layer standards comes in handy. These X's indicate which layers are on for the architectural plan, which layers are on for the furniture plan, which are for the power, and so on. All right, so I'm going to have this off to the side, and then I'm going to move down my list here, and I'm going to check the items off and freeze the layer that should not be on in this for this drawing. Again, this is the architectural. So I'm moving down here. Bathroom, kitchen should be on, center line should be on, column tag should be on, dash should be on, so on, blah blah blah. The first one that should be off is finish. So I go down here and I freeze finish. Then I power, furniture power, RCP should be off, or frozen I should say, not off. RCP grid should be frozen. Symbols arc should be on, or thawed is the term. Text architecture should be thawed. Text border, it doesn't have to be on. Oh, actually, I say in the layout that it's on, so it doesn't matter because it's not going to be there in the activated viewport. So, but let's leave it on. Text finish should be frozen. Text RCP frozen. Title block border, all of these I show as on, though it doesn't matter, right? Because we're not in paper space, and that's where those layers are. Okay, wall interior, wall structure, window frame, window sill, those are all on. So perfect. That's set. And now I can close this off and zoom out. So this is perfectly set up for the architectural plan. Even when more layers are drawn on, all you'll see are the layers that are appropriate for the architectural plan. I'm going to double click outside of it. Okay, it's getting to be a long video, but so let me just wrap it up real quickly by doing the rest of these very quickly. Next thing, I'm going to right click on that tab. So in order to make the other sheets, you need to go down to the tab below and right click on it and choose this option, move or copy. And you're going to create a copy and move to the end and hit OK. You have to do those two things. And now you have two tabs which are exactly the same. And the second tab you right click on and choose rename, and this one I'm going to call furniture, or fern for short. And then I just need to modify this one so it shows the furniture plan rather than the architectural plan. And I do that the same way. I double click inside the viewport, activating it, and then I go to my layer property manager, and I just go through the list. And you look at your layer standards and you figure out which layers need to be on for the furniture plan and which layers are off. So I'll just do this. I don't need the dimensions. Finish stays off. Furniture is on, obviously. Power is off. Reflected ceiling plan off. Reflected ceiling plan grid. Symbols architecture is frozen. Text arc is frozen. Text finish is frozen. Text furniture is on. Text power is frozen. Text RCP. All of these things remain on. So it's just a few that you turn on or off. And then we go back and let's see what we have. There's our furniture plan. You can always adjust it later if you missed one. Then I'm going to right click on that one, go to move or copy, move to end, create a copy, and now I have a third tab here. Right click on it, rename that power. So this will be our power plan. And you do the same thing. You double click inside here, go to your layer property manager, and then work along here. So this is power plan. And so the furniture is, it's hard to see which one is which. Furniture is frozen now, and the power is thawed. And I just go down here to text power, and I'll turn that one on and freeze text furniture. Should just be those things. And then you get this view. Now it's important to remember then in this case that in model space, I'm going to click on the model space tab, all layers must remain on. When they're on, they can be visible through the viewport, but everything has to stay on for this system to work. So then I can click on each tab here. I get the architectural drawing here, furniture drawing here, and the power plan here. Alright, so that's how you do it. That's all you need to do to set up, and we'll continue to add tabs there as we complete more drawings. One final thing though is I wanted to show you how to fix this situation. The dashed lines aren't showing properly. Well, that brings us back to our layer standards handout, and at the bottom of it you see important settings. The LT scale is 12. We've already done that. By changing that to 12, or to manipulate that LT scale, changes the size of the line types, those other than continuous. But that controls it in model space, and so of course in model space it's correct. Let me go back there. In model space they look correct. Right? This is the center line, and these dashed lines look correct. But in paper space they don't. So then we look at the other setting here, and it's PSLT scale. So this is a kind of a crazy, very detailed little setting that AutoCAD I think has set to the wrong default. For some reason the default is 1, and when the default is set to 1 here, the line types look different in paper space and model space. If you set this PSL T-scale to 0, then the line types look the same in paper space and model space. That's all you have to remember. So all you need to do there is type in PSL T-scale, and the default is 0. Default is 1. Change it to 0. Now you won't see the change automatically here because you need to regenerate the drawing. You could stop right here and you're fixed. You've fixed the problem. But if you want to see it fixed, you either need to turn off or close the drawing and open it again, or you can just regenerate the drawing. And to do that, you double click inside the viewport and type in RE, enter. So you see that it's been fixed. You can see the line types in the right way. And I double click outside of that viewport. Now I'll have to do that for each one of these windows, or each one of these layouts rather. So I'll type in PSL T-scale and set it to 0. And type in RE to regenerate it. All right. Now if I had done this before I even started with the first one on the architectural tab and then made copies of that tab, I wouldn't have had to do it more than once. So this is the only time we have to do it, because all future layouts will be correct. PSL T-scale, set it to 0, and then RE, enter, in an activated viewport. Okay. That's it. That's all you need to do. If you have any questions, email me.